Hello, and welcome to Stellantis Tech and AI, our podcast where we sort of talk about navigating the future of cars and technology. I'm your host, Dale Jewett, and today joining us on the podcast is Maria Uvarova, who is the Senior Vice President for Software Product Management. Maria, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to be here.
And speaking of glad to be here, while some people know that I sit in the Detroit area, you are on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean working for us. Tell me a little bit about your position and where you're at.
Absolutely. So actually, as you know, Stellantis is a global company. Its presence is pretty much all the continents except for maybe, Antarctic. But other than that, we have now offices almost everywhere. And I'm personally based in Munich, Germany, also making a lot of use of our flexible working policy. So if you could see me right now, I would be in my home office, very cozy, with a lot of posters on my wall. And in terms of my position, so yes, as you said, I lead software product management team at Stellantis, which means that my PMs work directly with our software engineers to build hopefully best-in-class software products for our end consumers. And we are really devoted to this mission because we know how important software is actually for our customers nowadays.
Okay, and speaking of that team, I mean you're in Munich, but it's a nice global team. There's more than 2,000 members from what I did in my research, and your team really is responsible for all the onboard and offboard software that we're creating and developing for all the iconic brands of Stellantis. So, and before we get into some questions, I want to ask you about your background a little bit, because we're talking software, but from what I understand, you're not a newbie to the auto industry.
When I just joined Stellantis, which was not too long ago, I'm pretty fresh off the boat here. I just joined in February this year. But when I joined, my manager introduced me as Maria. She doesn't know much about automotive, but she's an expert in software, so we'll help her get onboarded. And I then actually shared with some of my team members that to be exact, I started my career in the automotive world. It was years ago, back when we didn't really talk a lot about software in automotive. So I was still in charge of digital experience, but those were mostly in the back office. And as I started my career actually in the Volkswagen Group back then, we only thought about digital experience as an experience for our sales team, for instance, right? So when they talk to our customers, is it possible for them to use something else but pen and paper, right? And that's what we call digital back then. The industry evolved a lot since I left Volkswagen back in, oh my God, when was it? 2008. Yes, it's been a while. But now I'm coming back in 2023, and I see that really when it comes to our software journey, a lot has changed. In the meantime, I actually worked mostly in digital companies, really honing my skills as product manager responsible for software first, and making sure that I really get more and more years of experience under my belt, building first-hand software knowledge about products that we launch to market. So for instance, I spent 8 years of my career at Amazon in different roles, responsible for software products ranging from their retail offering in our e-commerce stores to also international expansion, and also to our fashion-specific digital products such as try-on assistant and so on, and virtual assistant. So super interesting experience, but also very exciting to actually come back to automotive today, because it's going through a massive transformation, and I'm very excited to be a part of that.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm excited that you've joined our team, because it sounds like your breadth of experience is going to have a huge impact on what we're doing. So we titled this episode of the podcast, Building a Car While Driving It. And maybe the petrol heads and wrenchers in the audience might find that interesting, but I think this is much more of a software oriented discussion. So to you, how does that title make sense to you? What does it mean to you that we're building a car while we're driving it?
Really, to me, that's a perfect reflection of what we are doing today in the software team, because we are essentially making sure that the car can still be upgraded on the go. We are moving away from the model when the only touch point of the customer with the automotive company was actually at the moment when we sell them the car, right? Well, maybe sometimes when they come for like buyback or something, but that's it, right? Essentially, there is just one point in time, and then you get your car and then you drive it for like 10, 12 years, or maybe you resell it. But one way or the other, you don't really think about the company that produced your car too much. Nowadays, we want to really make sure that we keep this connection open and we actually keep upgrading the car more and more, which is possible with our software offering. We call it over-the-air updates, which means that we can actually use connectivity and cloud products to update software in your car literally on the fly. I have to admit, the title Building While Driving is maybe a little bit provocative because in reality, you would still probably have to park your car before we can upgrade it, because we definitely don't want any safety incident.
No, I agree. But we try to be a little provocative here. And you're talking about that. Oh yeah, just like my mobile phone, which every once in a while likes to say, hey, you weren't paying attention, or while you were sleeping, we did some software fun. Now restart your phone. It always has to restart my phone for everything to take effect. That's all right. So software, how do we know, since we're a very customer focused company, how do we know what customers need or want when it comes to their software?
That's a good question. And actually, this is really where cloud and connectivity can help us a lot, because let's say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the biggest source of data that we had about our customers were maybe some customer feedbacks or like super delayed feedback that we see when the customers either buy or don't buy our new model at all, or some configuration of this new model. So that's the best source of feedback that we used to have. Super hard really to discern that and to use it in your daily work, especially if you want to do continuous improvements to your products, which is what we do today to software. But again, the situation has changed drastically. We are talking about connected vehicles today, which means that a lot of information about how the customers actually use Stellantis cars, that information is accessible to us. So we are able to really see most of the time, near real time, what the customers are doing, what are their driving patterns, how are they using our infotainment system, how are they using our built-in navigation, what they like, what they dislike, what applications they maybe close right after they open them, maybe because they're frustrated or they find something better, and so on and so forth, right? So all this usage information is super valuable to us because it helps us build I would say, good quality hypothesis about what customers want or maybe what they don't enjoy that much. And so based on that information, we can then keep trying our best to improve the existing products by those over-the-air updates, but also build new ones. Because we see, for instance, that there are some gaps in the customer journey. And maybe if there is a gap, it means that I don't know, the customers didn't find anything specific within their Stellantis vehicle, and they had to revert back to their phone to close the gap. So we would actually like to help them also close that gap within their car. So we would launch some new products to help them there.
Okay, I'm a bit curious about this. I understand what you're saying, but I guess my instinct is that at least today, there doesn't, to me, seem to be that large of a number of vehicles on the road that are actually connected. I mean, are we getting a lot of quality data that your teams are working with, or are we still sort of at the lower end, or at the start of that curve of data flow that we can get from vehicles?
You'd be surprised, Dale, actually, because with most of Stellantis new vehicles, we have some basic connectivity included. So it's a free trial, and customers don't really have to pay for that in the beginning, right? So with that, we get a lot of connected vehicles on the road every day. And I don't want to disclose any confidential numbers, but we are talking about millions of Stellantis vehicles alone that are actually hitting the roads, and that we can get a lot of valuable insights from.
So it seems whenever we talk, or when anyone talks about data these days, and particularly collecting information from people, the issue of privacy is probably one of the first questions that'll be asked. So let's talk about how do we deal with privacy and data from these millions of vehicles that are helping us develop the future.
That's a great question, really. And I know that for many customers, this is a concern. And obviously, we want to make sure that every customer feels protected and feels that, let's say, we are not violating their rights. Because nowadays, in many regions of the world, we do actually have legislation that explicitly protects customer rights, and makes sure that companies cannot abuse customer data, for the lack of a better word. But this is really what we take very seriously at Stellantis. So first of all, whenever we use any kind of insights about customer behavioral patterns, all the data is obviously anonymized, right? So we wouldn't drill down to a single vehicle to understand how a particular Mr. X is, interacting with his voice assistant today. So all that information is purely private. No need to worry. But on the grand scheme of things, first of all, we are very clear about customer consent to the data usage. So every time you get a new vehicle, or maybe you buy something secondhand, we would actually start our relationship with you in terms of digital services first by really asking you for your consent, so that we could use your data in one or the other format. And as probably everybody is used to already, whenever you enter any website these days, you are asked to give your consent for your data to be used for this purpose or any variety of purposes. We do the same, right? We make it very easy for the customers to really understand what types of causes, what types of reasons their data can be gathered for and used for. And obviously, every time we are thinking about any kind of, let's say, commercial usage of data, for instance, when we want to build a usage-based insurance product for you, we would ask you for your specific consent. So for customers that would like, let's say, a year from purchasing their car, at some point they would consider buying a usage-based insurance that takes into account their daily driving habits, they would actually have to give a specific consent so that we could use their data for insurance purposes. But other than that, as I said, we are really clear in terms of how we use the data, how we anonymize that, how we randomize that, so that privacy rights are really protected. We also have a stellar cybersecurity team, because we know that this is a massive issue nowadays, and you wouldn't believe how many rounds of reviews and approvals we actually have to go through every time we build a new product and want to release it to customers, because we want to be absolutely sure that there are no cybersecurity vulnerabilities. This is also a privacy issue for us. We want to make sure that if you trust us with your data, if you trust us with actually relying on us, that your vehicle will be protected, we don't betray your trust.
Okay. Um, it's interesting to me because the automobile is one of the most regulated products globally. It's one of the challenges of being a global automaker is it'd be great if we could just crank out the same vehicle and sell it all over the world. That would vastly simplify things, but it never works that way. Every region has its own specific regulations. um and a lot of times in my experience, that is always a factor that people cite on why it takes so long to design and create and build a car and get it on the road. I'm no software wizard like you, Maria, but I know that the culture in software is to go fast. Create something, iterate it, get it out there, find out how it's working, and then come back and quickly change it and constantly improve. And I'm certain that's exactly what we're trying to do with Stellantis and the software your teams are creating. But I, how do you navigate that clash of software wants to go fast, hardware regulations are there because everyone wants safety? To me, there's an inherent friction there, and I'm not sure how you navigate the getting around the road bumps on getting your product
Mm.
launched quickly.
Well, first of all, let me start by maybe telling you one personal anecdote to demonstrate that these challenges are not just automotive challenges. We do have a lot of regulations, and legislation in different countries is different. At the same time, the governments of most countries actually want, I would still say, what's best for their citizens in terms of protection, in terms of really making sure that we have, let's say, level play field as well, right? And so for that, it is extremely important for software companies to still take regulations into account, and we do. And we still manage to somehow marry it with our agile mode of working. But again, back to the personal anecdote that I promised. So several years ago, I will not tell how many, when I was still working at Amazon, I will not say which division, but I got a call on a public holiday, actually late at night, telling me, oh, Maria, you actually need to jump on a call right now because our team will have to testify in front of US Congress in a couple of days based on the recent launch of the product that your team is responsible for. So you can imagine my shock and also the amount of stress that me and my team were under when we were preparing for that congressional hearing. And it was a good experience because on the one hand, it actually helped us, let's say, kick the tires on our product requirements process and how we work together with our legal team to really make sure that we are not cutting corners. And second, it also helped us understand a little bit better what the society is worried today, and actually rightfully so, worried about these days, and how do we get ahead of those concerns better. So again, reflecting back on that experience from what I know today, we definitely could have done something better, but it wasn't a tragedy. We didn't have to do any kind of rollbacks. We just needed to explain a little bit better what algorithms we were using and what data was then behind that algorithm built into our products. And today, cases like that would probably be popping up again and again because we are living in the age when AI is getting more and more prominent, and sometimes it's going to be not transparent enough for citizens, for regulators to really understand what is behind this or that product, and maybe how many biases could be behind them. And maybe, if your AI assistant could be hallucinating, which is like a common term now in the AI industry, hallucinating about the advice that it's given to you, right? And especially when you are driving, in the time when you receive this advice, can it be dangerous for you potentially, right? So all those things are super critical, and therefore I do believe that regulations are important, compliance is important, and it is really critical especially for automotive industry, to think about that upfront. If your mobile phone dies suddenly, probably nothing critical would happen. But if some critical software in your car suddenly is turned off, that could actually cause an accident. And we see those cases happening today also with autonomous vehicles. So the industry will move ahead. We will keep developing those products. You can't stop the future. That's a good thing. But we also need to make sure that we put some frameworks in place, and regulators are there exactly for the purpose of such frameworks. But coming back to the premise of your question, right? How do we balance it together with agile approach? It is really by making sure that we build powerful cross-functional teams. In every team that we have within my product organization that has, let's say, relatively big regulatory impact, we actually have specific point of contacts that work with legal on daily basis, that are appraised of all the recent challenges in the industry from the regulatory perspective, from the compliance perspective, and that and these people are really integrated into our product backlogs on daily basis. That's how we stay agile at the same time with staying compliant.
That's a good discussion. My history in the industry, working fast traditionally in the auto industry has always meant, hey, let's get a small group of people together, and let's put them off in a corner, put them in a closet and secrete them away from everybody, and and then let them do their thing, and then they come out and they say, ta-da, here's something brand new, and usually it's like a sports car. But it sounds to me like the driving force for your teams is very cross-functional, and it also sounds like it's very open, that you want everyone to sort of be a part of what you're working on.
I do understand this concept of locking yourself in a room with a couple of engineers and just coding for a year and then coming out with an amazing product or a race car. That's great. I'm just not sure that this is our reality these days. It was possible when the world was slower. That's my opinion, right? But maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the situation was less volatile. Customer needs were a bit more stable. Our customers maybe a little bit less savvy when it comes to constantly learning about new things on the market and being open to the fact that technology keeps evolving really daily. But that's our reality today, right? The ambiguity is overwhelming. The rate of change is tremendous. And so I don't think it's possible anymore to really kind of do this hero concept of building a product when you isolate yourself and really just focus on one thing and one thing only for a long period of time. Because good chance is the moment you emerge from your locked room, the world doesn't need your sports car anymore. They need a self-driving robot or whatever. I don't know, right? You never know. But or maybe a spaceship. Depends on how long you stay in the locked room. But you see what I mean, Dale, right? So that is why for me this is so critical that my team, first of all, stays constantly open to change and to all the advancements that are happening in the technology world. So really, it's part of your job description to stay up to date with all the technology developments in your field, with all the competitor developments in your field, with understanding your customer really on a daily basis, because customer needs, they really keep shifting and dramatically shifting day by day. But also making sure that we take a lot more inputs from our cross-functional partners, legal, business teams, engineering, of course, right? Design. I can name more, but the critical component is really being cross-functional, because yes, of course, product manager does have this ultimate responsibility for what we want to build, what kind of product we want to build. But it's not possible to do that efficiently without constantly listening to people that might have a slightly different angle towards the same problem. And that's what a cross-functional team essentially supposed to be doing.
Okay. So speaking of listening to people, your team is global. What are you learning, or what is your team learning about regional differences in what customers expect and want from software in their vehicles? I'm prompted to think about, European automakers were very resistant for a long time about putting cup holders in their vehicles, because in Europe, people don't drive and drink, they don't have coffee with them really while they're driving. But Americans live in their cars, and they needed a spot for their coffee and their soda bottles and their snacks. And the European automakers eventually came around to that vision, but it took time. And so I'm wondering, what are the differences we're learning today?
That is an interesting question, because typically my experience is that there are a lot more axes of differences rather than just country or regional difference. Actually, customers that live in big cities with dense traffic, be it in Europe or US or somewhere else, they are also different from customers that live in the country, right? And their needs are different. They need different parking features. They need different navigation support. They need different, access to services like ordering a restaurant table, maybe in a big city, or services that would help you with trailering, perhaps in the country. And then again, those things would be actually not just country bound, but they would be really more bound to the customer's lifestyle and location, city versus country. But also on regional side, we do see differences, of course, and we can't ignore that. And this is why we do a lot of customer research that is always done cross-country, cross-region. So every time we think about any emerging customer need or specific product opportunity that we would like to explore, we are very careful to include sets of customers representing every customer segment that we are targeting, be it countries, be it city versus countryside, and gender obviously matters as well. Income level matters too, because all those things and many more really impact how our customers interact with their vehicle and what do they also expect in terms of software products.
Does that also extend to our brands? Stellantis has 14 brands, and we cover a wide gamut of I would say of qualities, of emotions, of feelings, depending on what brand you're driving. Does a driver of a Fiat or a Peugeot or a Citroën have different desires or different preferences versus, say, the driver of a Jeep vehicle or a Maserati?
Those brands have very strong brand identity, and they have devoted customers that are maybe buying Citroën after Citroën or Fiat after Fiat. And it is very clear that customers that are, let's say, devoted customers of Maserati will probably be different than devoted customers of Opel or Peugeot. However, when we talk about software products specifically, we still need to take into account that some basic customer needs will actually be the same across many, many customer segments and across many, many brands. So that means that when we built our base software, we actually want to simplify as much as possible and reuse as many components as possible across multiple brands. Of course, we will then be able to customize specifically for particular brands, for particular customer segments, but reducing complexity across 14 brands is critical for a company like Stellantis. We want to make sure that our software is easy to maintain, and it's only possible when we reduce complexity. We also want to make sure that we don't unnecessarily complicate things, which would make them more expensive, because then we would probably have to extend that cost increase to our customers. We don't want to do that, right? So we want to make sure we keep the complexity to the minimum, at the same time as actually customizing for our iconic 14 brands. And this is why whenever we build new products, for instance, our smart cockpit, we want to make the base layer as simple as possible so that it can be reused for every brand, but at the same time enable as many customization opportunities also so that we can satisfy the needs of specific brands. That's a balancing act, right? It's not always easy, but that's really what is super important for us.
Okay. You've been very generous with your time, Maria, but you're an expert, so I'm hoping you can help educate me a little bit, and our listeners too. In your universe, I hear discussion about something called the digital twins. I have no idea what that is and how that helps your team, but maybe you could give me the quick 1-minute explanation of digital twins.
Sure, Dale. The digital twin is really something that helps us accelerate our product development, accelerate it tremendously, because when you think about all the testing, validation, safety precautions that we need to take before we can actually release the vehicle on the road, that's a lot. And we used to do most of that with actual real physical vehicles and actual drivers that, well, also need to eat, sleep, and everything, right? And with digital twin, the benefit is that we can build in the cloud pretty much a twin of the final vehicle that represents a lot of the same characteristics, but make them actually cloud-based. And that enables us to test and validate a lot of software features actually in the cloud, and also do a lot of automated testing. That shortens dramatically the time that it takes to get our products to the customers without compromising on safety. So of course, we want to make sure we still do some integration testing with physical vehicles, but the time is still dramatically compressed because we can move a lot of those tests to the digital twin. That's the whole point.
Excellent. Interesting. Thank you. I feel smarter for that. I appreciate that. A lot of what we've talked about, a lot of what your team works on, I think is devoted to the future. We've talked about how we have Stella Brain, Stella Smart Cockpit, and Stella Auto Drive in development, and we'll see those developments very soon. But I'm curious, does your team also work? Can you work with the legacy technology that are in our vehicles? Are there things that your team can do that works for them?
Absolutely. And that's a very critical part of our work. So my team is obviously spending a lot of time understanding customer needs and building customer requirements for the next generation of our platforms and products, as you said. But we don't want to just let our legacy products, our serial life products, be the status quo. We want to extend all the benefits of over-the-air updates to as many vehicles in our car park that is already on the roads. And so with that, we are actually exploring our opportunities already today. We do obviously have a lot of updates happening to our off-board products. So you would be surprised, that your mobile application for Stellantis vehicles, it gets updated regularly. But we can also do some updates to our onboard infotainment systems. And I don't want to spoil it, but our customers can expect some big updates, big changes coming early next year. But for this year already, I would actually like to congratulate my team with one of our recent big successes when we integrated ChatGPT in our DS vehicles. So that was one of our experiments that truly demonstrated how fast we can make a meaningful change to our vehicles on the road. So we actually updated the existing DS car park for the customers that were interested in this functionality. And we managed to deliver that update, ChatGPT built into the DS cars. We managed to just do this over the air.
Congratulations. That is impressive. And I know that's the vision of the future that everyone on your team is working for. You've been very generous with your time, Maria. If you don't mind me getting just a touch personal, is there a feature that you would really love to have in your personal vehicle, or when you and your family are out driving, that you don't have yet? And is your team working on that?
That's a good one. And as a product manager, I have to tell you first, Dale, that whatever my personal preferences, I do my best to prevent those biases from actually impacting our backlog and our roadmap, right? Because I'm just one customer, right? And I am very well aware that I represent probably a very specific segment of Stellantis customers, right? I'm based in Europe. I'm based in a big city. I actually, again, thanks to our flexible working policy at Stellantis, I don't have to drive every day, right? Because I get a privilege of actually working from home several days a week. And also, well, I'm a woman. I'm sure it also impacts my decision to a certain extent. But if I were to say, what software feature I'm really looking forward to, well, it's probably very obvious. I'm really looking forward to full valet parking opportunities. And I'm glad to say that our team is actually working on that.
Oh, good. So if I have requests, can I send you my requests? I mean, like, can I have a rock and roll skin for my dashboard? The displays on my dashboard.
Absolutely. We will definitely put it on our backlog.
I would say heavy metal, but that might date me a little bit more. So, but Maria, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation about the power and everything that you're trying to do with software that will really customize and tailor the vehicle to me, or in theory to my wife. When she gets in the vehicle, it should know who she is and should automatically change from the rock and roll skin on the displays to, she's much more of a Taylor Swift fan, so maybe you get the Taylor Swift skin. I don't know. But anyhow, this has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate it. And I look forward, maybe we can get back together in a year and we can see how much has changed in just 12 months. So, but and you're in Munich, and I hear they have some nice beer there. So someday I need to get to Munich and we can share a beer in the beer garden.
Let's do that, and let's plan a date for, say, early October next year. What's awaiting.
Maria Uvarova, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. And come back to our next episode, where we're going to talk about leading the way the world moves with Heiko Schilling, who is the Stellantis Senior Vice President of Software Engineering. I'm Dale Jewett, and this has been the Stellantis Tech and AI podcast. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.